Say hello to... Say hello to... Released in 1977, the Atari 2600 is probably the earliest console people actually give a crap about. Sure, the Odyssey, the Fairchild Channel F, and the RCA Studio 2 preceded it, but let's face it, only hardcore collectors even have a remote interest in those three. Atari popularized the concept of a home video game machine with interchangeable cartridges, birthed the industry around it, and nearly killed off said industry in one of the most prolific tales of corporate greed ever witnessed. However, for as giant as the console became, its beginnings were rather humble. In 1973, Atari began work on the 2600, which was to use microprocessors to play games instead of the integrated circuitry of the Magnavox Odyssey and early arcade titles. The amount of freedom programmers would have compared to what games at the time offered was very appealing, along with the fact that consumers could get a radically different game on a ROM card compared to only having a few minor variations of the same built-in game. The problem was that Atari was still a tiny company at the time, and the cost of developing the machine made progress slow until 1976, when the aforementioned Channel F hit. Fairchild had beat them to the punch on their own concept. Worse, Pandora's box had been opened, and it was only a matter of time before a flood of Me Too Channel Fs would storm the market. Atari had to get the 2600 together, and they had to do it immediately. In desperation, Atari founder Nolan Bushnell sold the company to Warner Communications to get the capital to finish the machine. When the 2600 got the market the following year, it didn't exactly take off. It outsold the Channel F, mind you, but consumer reception was rather cold on the heels of the video game crash of 1977, making Warner question their decision to gamble on Atari. It didn't take long after that for Mr. Bushnell to leave Atari after the iron fist of the new corporate overseers tightened. Sales started to ramp up in 78 and 79, but it was the release of the arcade smash Space Invaders in 1980 that turned the 2600 into the hottest selling thing in existence. Technically superior competitors like the Intellivision and the Odyssey 2 rose to do battle, but in the end, the console's demise was self-engineered. In 1982, Atari, swimming in ludicrous amounts of quick cash from the huge booming video games, were giving programmers shorter and shorter windows to complete games in. To Atari, it didn't matter how good the game was, just whether it could be made quickly and if it had a big name license attached to it. This culminated in the release of A Poor Pac-Man, which was actually a prototype put together to show it was actually possible to pull off on the hardware, but without any actual fine-tuning, and E.T., which was giving a window of only 5 weeks to complete. The result was pretty much everyone in unison saying screw this and buying an affordable home computer, like the Commodore 64. The market crashed, and both good hard-working men and corporate idiots lost their jobs, and the 2600 barely survives until the NES invigorates the market. Atari, under new management, marketed the 2600 with its massive library as a budget console, which works out for the arcade system. It survives until 1992, when it's discontinued for Atari to concentrate on the even more ill-fated Atari Jaguar. Generally, the console ranges between $30 to $50 in most places, depending on the model. With it, you're going to need one of these pieces for any modern TV, easily found at Radio Shack and similar stores. You'll also need its dedicated AC adapter, but they aren't much of a problem to dig up. Finally, a controller is in order. I recommend a Sega Genesis pad if available over the standard controllers, which are thoroughly horrible. Paddle controllers are needed for many of the games too, and finding functioning ones can be a bit of an issue. A final note, make sure that the reset switch or button works, as most games require it to start and they break real easy. Trust me. 2600 games are available on a variety of compilations and clone consoles, like the Atari Flashback for example. Cards tend to be very inexpensive in the Flash, but they're still more expensive than buying a Flashback 64, so most people should go that route. While many games can be fun in short bursts, most people will have a hard time enjoying the experience this console offers. While it's kind of fun to collect for because of the large number of oddities and its overall inexpensive nature, the primitive nature of the games available, on top of the very large amount of terrible titles, make most collectors scoff at it. Only those with a tinge of nostalgia and a good knowledge base of the catalog of games should invest in the machine.